Matt Lenihan for Boxing Social. Delighted to be joined by Eddie Hearn. Eddie, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time. I know you've been busy all week. Appreciate it as always. How's things?
Yeah, good mate. Apologies for the attire. We've just had the early morning weigh-in in Philadelphia. Something a little bit different, obviously, for the US shows. The official weigh-in comes at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
on the Friday, which I like actually. I think it's good for the safety of the fighters to have that extra 4 hours to hydrate. And then 1 o'clock they'll be on the scales at the Wells Fargo. Massive fight night, to be honest with you, mate. I mean, the buzz in the city is incredible. Going to be having about 14,000 there. It's the biggest fight night in Philadelphia for over 45 years, since Marvin Hagler against Benny Briscoe. And like, if Boots can put in the performance that I think his ability warrants, he's going to just rock it in terms of stardom and profile. So a big fight. We expect Avanesian to be super tough on Saturday, but I think Jaron Ennis could look sensational here.
When we saw what obviously Terence Crawford did to Avanesian, is that sort of something that's going to be used maybe as a bit of a benchmark in terms of, well, he stopped him in this, I can really make a statement doing it quicker? Or is it about just getting the win and showing up?
Yeah, I guess everyone will always, when you talk about a future Crawford Boots fight, which I think, by the way, is one of the biggest in boxing, you're always going to have the comparisons. I think he stopped him in, was it the 6th round or 7th round? And it was a good fight. It was competitive. I mean, look, Avanesian is a world-class fighter. There's no doubt about that. But Crawford's special, Boots is special. And I think you'll see that on Saturday night.
I remember I was looking at the date when Matchroom launched with DAZN. I think it was like July 2021. We had the big reveal in Matchroom HQ. I remember because it was one of the hottest days I've ever experienced. And do you look back and sort of think, how far you've come in terms of the numbers you're doing in America when you look at the Bam Rodriguez, obviously Canelo Saunders, but you're selling out, Wells Fargo by all accounts, and Devin Haney in the Bay. It's been a few years, but you're finally sort of there and thereabouts in America in terms of everything out there now.
Yeah, also Subriel Matias recently,
Yeah.
coming 9,000. I think it just, I look back sometimes at the press conferences, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and you grow, don't you? It's like you grow in terms of your knowledge, you become a little bit more savvy, things take time. I think one thing that I'm really proud of is the position DAZN are in.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, Matt, like I remember when we were pitching to fighters 4 or 5 years ago when we came to America, DAZN hadn't even launched yet in boxing or in America. And it was, although I had a reputation for promoting fights in the UK, having those conversations with big name US fighters, telling them to sign with me and this new app that no one's ever heard of. Like I back myself as one of the best in selling anything. But it was a tough sell, and we did have to overpay fighters originally, because what would happen is I think fighters were enthused by my pitch, but then they would go back and they would say to Heyman, or they would say, oh, I talk, and they would say, what, you're going to sign with DAZN, whatever, what is that? An app. You're going to fight on an app. Like, this will be a disaster for your career, because that's the feedback, that the narrative they'd want to spin, And it was quite easy for a fighter to go, like, fighting on an app. Now, everyone's fighting on an app. PBC are on an app, right? And on DAZN. Every big fight in the world is on DAZN. The numbers in the US, in the UK, in key global markets are through the roof for DAZN. And like, what that does is that just ignites their appetite for doing more. Do you know what I mean? Like, when numbers aren't very good, it's like, oh, batten down the hatches, let's be careful. Now, DAZN are in a position where they are the unrivaled global home of boxing. And it's like, right, how can we just add to the schedule? How can we do bigger fights? How can we keep this momentum? So, yeah, one of the most pleasing things is to see people eat their words about DAZN, because we took a big punt at the time. Not really in the US, because it was a new market for us, but particularly in the UK. So I'm pleased that's paying off. And I'm really pleased now with our position in American boxing and the relationships that we have with our fighters here, and also the ones that want to talk to us. Because the only reason you really wouldn't sign with Matchroom and me is because someone tells you not to.
Yeah.
So I like to meet these guys, and Shakur's a good example of that. We'll sit down. He'll be at the show tomorrow night, and I've arranged to meet his management early next week in America. let's see if it works for everybody. But the fact that we're even in those conversations, you look at that top 10 pound for pound list. Ennis, for me, is a clear top 10 pound for pound guy. Bam Rodriguez, top 5 now. Dimitri Bivol, was he 6? And many other fighters on that list that we're talking to as well. So, yeah, I think we're in a good spot.
As the likes of a Jaron Ennis, the fact that he's sort of taken that thing with you and he's having his homecoming, you're going to sort of build him from home, which has not happened yet for him. He's, obviously all the talent in the world, but in terms of a promotion, this is where it starts for him, really. Is that type of signing then open the door for a Shakur? Do you think that was quite a pivotal moment for you?
Yeah, I think every time you sign a big name fighter, it just makes other fighters that may have turned down conversations or more obviously been told not to sign with Eddie Hearn. It makes them go, well, obviously the Canelo partnership was massive for us because everyone started going, fuck me, well, if Canelo's working with Eddie, why shouldn't I work with Eddie? Devin Haney signing was massive with us at the time. And what we did from taking him from, relative obscurity all the way to the World Championship and big fights and big names. Bam Rodriguez, same thing. Now Jaron Ennis, and when people like Shakur come to the show on Saturday, they're going to look around and they're going to go, wow. And you need, right now, sometimes there's really interesting comments from Jaron Ennis, and you hear sometimes people think that I'm doing all the talking because I'm trying to make it the Eddie Hearn show or it's all about ego. No. I'm there to work on behalf of the fighters. I'm the mouthpiece. I'm the megaphone. And some fighters talk more than others. So Jaron, yeah, he can talk, but he likes to talk a little bit and show you how great he is in the ring. So for him, you've got me and you've got the Matchroom 24/7 vehicle promoting you, pushing you across social all the time, across all media, with the broadcast partners. Versus if you're Shakur Stevenson right now, it's Shakur versus the world. Yeah. He's got a mouthpiece. He's never had a mouthpiece because no one's wanted to be that guy. He's had no megaphone. He's having to do it all on his own. And it's pretty tiresome. And it's actually not good for the energy after a while. So that's, Shakur likes to speak, but he needs that vehicle, that machine that's doing the job for him. And he, people aren't really talking about the fact that he drew a good crowd in Newark last week. He delivered the best ratings on ESPN this year. People just want to say, well, he's boring. But not really. When he's in the right fights, he's going to be very exciting. And he's another pound for pound great. So, we'll see where those conversations go.
Is that what you believe has been missing from him? Because obviously Top Rank have promoted the who's who of, everyone in boxing, from your Muhammad Ali's to your Floyd Mayweather. So what's been missing from Shakur? He's got the talent, he's got the mouthpiece. What's missing?
Well, he hasn't really got the mouthpiece. I think Top Rank gave up on him when they found out that he wasn't going to renew his contract. And I don't blame them, by the way, for that. If you've got a guy that's publicly saying, I've got 2 fights left and then I'm off, you're not going to put him as top of priorities. And, there was probably one performance particularly that was a little bit boring. So what? He didn't get hit. He won every round. Shakur's never going to be Arturo Gatti. He's never going to sit in a pocket and have war after war after war. But he might beat everybody. And when he fights Zepeda or when he fights Tank or when he fights these guys, you're going to see the best of him. So the key is to make him against the right style, to make him in the career-defining fights, but also to get the momentum and start that promotional vehicle up and push his profile. Because like Jaron, they really enjoy it when they have someone pushing them and working for him in the right way. And you'll see that translate into performance as well.
Do you see comments, obviously, in relation to Mayweather promotions? Obviously, he's taken a lot of advice, seemingly, as someone who he looks up to in Floyd Mayweather. I know 2 different operating vehicles, but when he says, obviously, he'll speak to them as well, does that concern you at all that he could get swayed to join Floyd?
Oh, look, at the end of the day, I mean, we're all good. If we get Shakur, great. If we don't, no problem. We're massive. So, it would be a great addition to add a fighter of that quality to our stable. If not, we'll spend the money elsewhere.
In terms of comments made this week, I know Billy Joe Saunders reacted to a post that went out in terms of a Chris Eubank Jr. fight. Billy's not been around for a long time and, I think teased a comeback and nothing really came of it. Have you had further comment with Billy and potentially coming back?
No, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, because Billy one of my biggest gripes with fighters is, I can't start camp properly until I know my fight date, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same with Billy, but it's a bit of a double-edged sword because until he shows us that we can put a fight night together with the security of knowing that it's actually going to happen, yeah, it's difficult to actually make it happen. But I also understand with Billy, he's probably thinking, well, I'm not going to go through that whole process of getting myself in shape, getting down to the weight until I know I've got my opponent and my fight night set. So we're going to revisit those conversations with Billy. I'd love to see him back. You know, I think he's still a huge name in British boxing. I think he still has a lot to give, but he has been out for a long time. So he's going to need that fight to come back. And then I think he can fight anyone.
You mentioned this week also that in terms of Chris Eubank Jr., obviously we know he's signed for Boxer, but you said that you think he's sensible enough to know that a fight with Canelo, it's the wrong fight for him. Why is that? Obviously Canelo, pound for pound, one of the best. It'd be a big week in Vegas. Surely he's going to go out there and go, why not?
Oh, yeah, no, the money's got to be right. He'll get absolutely battered in that fight, and he knows that. But if the money's right, he'll take it. What I'm saying, my comments were, he's not an idiot. He knows he can't beat Canelo Alvarez. So if you're going to take a pasting in a potential career-ending fight, you've got to get paid for it. But commercially, Canelo against Eubank does half the numbers in America of Canelo against Berlanga, right? But Eubank will want so much money for the Canelo fight, and rightfully so, because he's got other options. I personally don't think that fight will happen. And, you know, all of our conversations with Chris and his team were, he wants those two gimme fights this year because he's been very inactive, and then he'll fight anybody after that. So, you know, if I'm Eubank, I'm probably taking those two fights with Boxer, then I'm fighting Conor Benn. And if I beat Conor Benn, then you look at the Canelo Alvarez fight next September. And by the way, he'll probably get the money he's asking for now, and he'll be in a position where he's actually geared up, ready for that kind of fight.
Conor Benn, obviously, we're never-ending conversations about him, but is that realistic in the next? You can see that down the line, Conor being able to fight in the UK.
Yeah, look, I mean, one thing's for sure. Like in a worst-case scenario, Conor will be, you know, he can fight in February or March next year. Like in the worst-case scenario, but at the same time, it's so frustrating that other fighters basically just plead guilty and do a deal for 6 months or a year. Conor's pleaded his innocence, and now we're 2 years down the line without an outcome. So I believe an outcome is pending. And when it is, he'll be back in the ring. So, you know, as I said, Chris wants these two easy fights. I think it will actually gear up really well for the big one in probably the spring of 2025.
Last one from me. I read an article today on Sports Boom, and you've made comments about, obviously, with the elections and things like that, and the UK government tackling knife crime. Obviously, Matchroom, we've done a lot in terms of caring the community, big on the fitness things. We do the 5Ks. If you were in charge, how would you sort of implement boxing having an effect on, i.e., knife crime and things like that? And would you be willing to sort of lend a hand or open a department that says, look, let's have talks on how we can move this forward?
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, you know, we've already been in Parliament with Alex Gravel and our team in the community to have those conversations. If it takes me and my profile to make a difference for the younger generation in the country, I'd be honoured to do it. You know, I don't have a lot of time, but I would give my time to something like that because it's so important. Someone that has children and someone who, you know, is watching my kids grow up in this country, I'm very fearful of the future for the younger generation. You know, not just the technological side of social media and handsets and gadgets, but the way in which we seem to become so desensitized to things that are happening. You know, if there's a stabbing or if there's a murder, it's just another one, and we go again the next day. You know, when I was growing up, if someone lost their life through a, you know, knife crime, it was national news for months. You know, I mean, I go back to the likes of, you know, the Stephen Lawrence incident when I was growing up. There was decades if we were talking about that. You know, there was a young man who lost a boy who lost his life in Hainault, which is very close to me, on his way to school.
Mm-hmm.
Stabbed in the middle of the street in broad daylight and killed. Next day, oh, we're off again. Yeah, what's happening? Yeah, you know, oh, there's another one over in South London today. I don't understand. At what point did it become acceptable for people to carry knives on the street and to stab innocent people dead without someone doing something about it? I don't, you know, and part of that is because of the craziness that we see around the world across social media. But someone from the government has got to grab hold of it and say, why are kids doing this? And the reason, in my opinion, they're doing this is because of what's happening at home. You know, people growing up in, you know, underprivileged communities don't have the family structure and the role models within the family to tell them what's right or wrong. And they only receive that kind of care or that kind of compassion from the people they hang around with. But you can receive that kind of compassion in a boxing gym. That can be your family, and that can be the role models and the guiding lights that you need to show you the path in life. Because you can't just blame the kids that are coming through. You know, you've got to show them something, because it's very easy for me to come out and say to these kids, come on, guys, it's about working hard, waiting for the opportunity. They go to me, what do you know? What do you know about looking for an opportunity? Like, we have no opportunity. This is our only way out. But it's not. You know, there's a way out through hard work, through passion, through finding a path in life. And doors will open if you live your life correctly. Mm-hmm. But the problem is there's no one telling them that. They're just saying to them, look, do this, run this over there. There's a few quid. Come with us. Come into our family. Yeah. And that some of those families are bad families that will make you do bad things, that will make you carry weapons. Next thing, you're in a fight. You've had an altercation. You've stabbed someone. You're inside. Your life's over. There is no benefit of living that life. There is no benefit of carrying a knife. And there is certainly no benefit of stabbing someone. So, but these kids, they have no guidance. And the people within the communities in a boxing gym, as I said, can be that guidance. And that's why when you go into a boxing gym, you don't see kids in trouble. You see a lot of rogues. I love it when you go into a boxing gym and you look around, there's tearaways everywhere. But they're doing the right things in life. They're making the right decisions. They're working hard every day. Mm-hmm. And I just don't understand when the government wastes so much money on other projects. You're talking about projects within the community that are that the investment required is so small. But no one goes down there to see it with their own eyes. And all you have to do is go to an amateur boxing club and look around. That's it. Like, you've got to get in there. You've got to look at these heroes that are the coaches that are in there every single night, giving their time for the community. You've got to go out. You've got to drive kids in the community to come down, be part of that family, be part of that boxing club. And it's not a lot of money that's required, and we help out where we can. But the government, that there is, I'm not saying that investment into local boxing clubs can solve the knife crime problem, but I promise you it will help it. Unquestionably. So what are we waiting for? You know, we've got a new government. Let's start on a positive. Listen, if you want to talk to me, no problem. We've got a community team ready. I'll show you the way. But you've got to come down and see it with your own eyes, because our country is in a terrible state in that respect. We've got many problems, but one of the biggest problems is on the street. And I speak to people all around the world who go, I don't want to go to London. I'm not wearing my watch in London. Oh, I ain't making a phone call in London on the streets. What the fuck? What, you can't wear a watch in London? You can't make a phone call in London for someone coming past and nicking your phone? Or like, we've got to grab hold of this problem now. An investment into community clubs, that might not save the problem right now. That problem will be solved through, in my opinion, more police presence, more stop and search, and a tougher penalty for carrying weapons. But I'm talking about the next 2, 5, 10 years. If we don't grab hold of it now, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And in the end, everyone will fuck off out of the country. Mm-hmm. So let's make the change now.
Well said. Eddie, appreciate you giving us some of your time, pal. Thank you.
No worries, mate. Speak soon.